Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Marbach. At Georgian Court University, we're committed to educating the public about the importance of higher education and its impact on our communities. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Georgian Court University, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, New Jersey Resources, TD Bank, the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor. Insurance fraud costs New Jersey families $1,300 a year. Verizon, and by United Airlines. Promotional support provided by Observer New Jersey Politics and by hipnewjersey.com. Live hard, work hard, play hard. You're from New Jersey, and so are we.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No. People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, Steve Adubato here. You saw Gayle King over there. Her colleague, along with Nora O'Donnell, is here with us right now. John Dickerson, co-host of CBS This Morning on what time?
It's on at 7 to 9.
Hold on, why do you laugh at that?
Because it's my days, have started early and different, and I'm still getting used to it.
How early do you get up?
About 4.
4. Yeah. Face the Nation 2.5 years. You were there.
Yeah. So that started at 10:30. That's why, and then check your local listings, because it starts at different times,
Yeah.
different places.
When you got the call to come in and join these two terrific broadcasters and fill that slot, that place, did they know right away, hey, we want Dickerson here, or was it they were testing people out?
I think, I don't know exactly what was happening on their end. On my end, it was, it's obviously a big difference going from having your own show. But it was, once I started doing the sort of pros and cons list, the way they teach you to, there were a lot of things that lined up in the pro column. And it's just amazing, you think if you open the newspaper in the morning and you look at a bunch of different stories and you think, I want to talk about this one, I want to have somebody on to talk about that one, and then you get to have this conversation with, as you mentioned, two great journalists as well. So that was really, that excitement of being able to do that every day, that's really what drew me.
Both of those broadcasters, Gayle and Nora, have sat right there, and they were just great with us. And I was telling you before we got on the air that I saw you guys the other morning, and I thought chemistry is really there. Did you sense it? And then not a lot is scripted. I'm sure you have to throw to some pieces at times, right. But did you immediately feel like, hey, we're comfortable with each other?
Well, I think it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, I think my bosses did. That's one of the reasons why they thought, because, I was doing a very different kind of show in Washington, so it's not like, when there were some people who thought, this is not like the progression, it wouldn't necessarily be the one you'd think of. But I certainly feel incredibly comfortable with both of them, and have in part because for the last several years, while I was doing Face the Nation, and even then before that, I was on the show a lot, and I was at that round table, and it was always this feeling that, when the conversation had to end because we were done for time, we always continued it. And so it feels, in a sense, like picking up that old conversation, but obviously in a new format.
So you've covered, by way of background, let folks know your family background and its connection to journalism.
Sure. My mother, Nancy Dickerson, Nancy Hunchman, for your viewers who knew her from the early days, was a correspondent for CBS, the first female correspondent for CBS News, and then was at NBC, and then did documentaries after that. So. Did
you know this was going to be a professional life?
No. In fact, probably until... Well, I was in I was in print for 25 years, and so, but even that would have been something that would have surprised me even until I was out of college.
So what did you think you were going to do?
I thought I'd be a writer of longer form things, of books, and maybe be an English professor or a lawyer. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But I came to New York after college and worked for Time magazine as a secretary, and once I saw what they were doing there, I thought I want to be a part of that.
So let's fast forward. Talking about trying to make sense of the Donald Trump presidency, particularly interaction and relationship with the media? Describe it.
Well, it's as contentious as we've had since probably the Nixon era, where there's a conscious effort by the president. Presidents and the press always butt heads. That's the point. That's why we're there.
Sure.
But,
how is this different?
Well, this is different because there's a much more contentious ongoing relationship, and the press is used as a foil by the president in a much more systematic way than we've had with previous presidencies. You know, presidents have worked with the press and worked against the press in minor little ways, but as a part of the daily strategy, we really kind of haven't seen this in this kind of ongoing way since probably Nixon.
So when you're around some of your friends who have different political views and they accuse you, because I know they do, because I've been accused of it, and I'm sure you have too, of being part of a concerted effort of the media to take down this president. They have, you know, because you don't only talk to people in the media, and we don't all have the same political ideology. So my point is, do you have that discussion or do you avoid it?
Oh, yeah, no, I have it all the time with regular voters, too, that I talk to, regular civilians, who are the more important people to talk to, because you're always at some level going to get political experts for the party of the president saying, you guys are out to get him.
I'm not talking about those.
Yeah, but regular
people,
real people think, you know, you're out to get the president. Now, people on the left think you're not out to get him enough. And so there's been a lot of that in the past in my career. We are at a new situation now, though, with this particular president for sure, both because of the way he runs the White House and because of the kind of nature of the way he stirred up the country. But we're also in this place because the country has stirred itself up. The country is much more partisan than it was when I started in this business. And so people are ready to fight in a way that is distinct from President Trump. So there's kind of two factors there.
John, the question of truth, right? Great quote that I'm sure you know, the first casualty of war is truth, right? Was said about many, many wars ago. Is it harder to identify what is true, accurate, in this environment, the whole fake news thing? Here's my question, I promise you there's one. You have said that truth has been a huge casualty in this White House.
Well, it's in this White House and also in this media environment. I mean, it's not just this White House. Certainly we have a president who has created a new standard for saying things that aren't so. I mean,
intentionally?
Well, I think in some cases intentionally, in some cases of omission, in some cases he's uninformed about the specifics of the case. It is hard to know. But there are certainly cases in which he said things he knows to be untrue, and he said them anyway for effect. So that's a specific and particular case of this president. But we are also in, and so I don't want to miss that, but the second point I want to make is also important, which is we are also in an environment, a media environment, where the competition to say something first is so rushed that people go out and they say things that they haven't double-checked. And that adds to a diminution of respect for the press. And then the other thing I would say is that this president and others have made a point of saying that the press is out to get them. And so that all of the natural things that happen when you're covering a moving story, which is things shift. There is a group of people now who want to make those shifts, which are natural in our human understanding. We start here and we learn and we end up here. They want to make that natural shift seem like something sinister, as opposed to the natural thing that occurs when you're learning more information, you're building on it, you're correcting, you're adding context. That's what we do. That's what happens in news. You know, it's the first draft of history, to bring out another quote, and people have to see it in that context as opposed to that first draft, if it's wrong in any small way, to say, well, it's wrong completely.
You know, it's so interesting. You very rarely have a chance to ask a president a direct question. I told you before we got on the air, there's a clip, a pretty famous clip of you at a White House press conference. You were covering the White House. Excuse me, and George Bush was the president. I told you I was teaching a class in media over at NYU. And I remember using this clip to say, there was a lot going on, and here's the point. You asked President Bush to identify, I think, his biggest mistake or one mistake, and what happened after that? It was in a crowded press conference.
Yeah, that's right. It was in the East Room, and it was a presidential press conference, and I was working for Time magazine at the time. And you know, when you work for a news magazine, you know you're not going to get the first question, so you're going to get the one later. And so the question was, and this is something I still write about today, as a president, you're never allowed to admit mistakes. But as a
even if you know you've made one.
Even if you know you made one, because voters don't let you, the press doesn't let you. But if you're a human being, the success in life, and you saw Gayle King actually say it, is you got to always be learning. And how do you learn? Is you learn from mistakes. I can tell you some I made this morning that I'm already learning from. So how does a president do that? And what do they identify? And how do they learn from it? And so that was the question. And it was not a setup. The president actually, I prefaced it by talking about, he was asked this version of that question on the campaign trail, and he said that trading Sammy Sosa when he was a partial owner of the Rangers.
Actually, that was in your question. You said, Mr. President, you said trading Sammy Sosa when he was, and you said, well, give us an example, and he just stammered.
Yeah, that's right.
He had nothing.
He didn't have an answer, and it's funny. So I talked to him later about this, and he said, what I thought you were trying to get me to say, and this was not my intent, but this is what he thought it was, and this is, George Bush did that a lot. He did a lot of anticipating what he thought you wanted to hear, which is sometimes a trap, and in this case, he thought I was trying to get him to say that the Iraq War was a mistake.
Well, it's interesting. The reason I asked that question is because with President Trump, and listen, folks, whatever point of view you have, that's your business. Here at Public Television, we're not looking, and we do not advocate any political ideology, but I will say this. As a student of leadership who's written about it, who's taught it, I'm curious. If you asked that question of President Trump, do you think he would acknowledge any mistake?
I don't think so. And
I think he sees it as a weakness.
I think that's right. I think he sees it as a weakness. And also, he recognizes the public role of this. And this is why it's interesting. George Bush had trouble in that moment because he actually tried to answer the question. I think that President Trump would recognize that as a public leader, and also given his own view of himself and his success, and that he's always part of his brand building is to say, I'm the best,
You can be the best and still make mistakes.
That's right. And that's a more, when you read history of the people who have achieved greatness, all of them have some sense of self-reflection because they have to be able to adapt to new environments. And presidents have to adapt particularly because there is no training for the job. So you're always on the job training. And if you don't know what you've made mistakes, you can't learn to do the job
So, John, I have to do this. What was the most significant mistake you've made?
Well, there are a lot of them.
Could you just give us one here for our vast public television?
Yeah.
Fios
Well,
audience?
I can tell you one I made today. I can
name
so
10,
we were
but go ahead.
talking. We were on the show this morning. We were talking about this horrible school shooting. And
we're taping right after the horrific events in Florida.
And so I just didn't. I was so caught up in thinking about something else, I wasn't paying attention to what was happening in the moment, which you're talking to the student, one of the students and the teacher, and not recognizing the need to be in the moment. You got a lot of planning, a lot of things going on, but you're talking about this incredible story about this teacher who saved 60 kids, maybe,
right.
and a kid that was in the class. So not being in the moment is a thing to be reminded of, even when you think you've got a lot of other things going on about later in the show and all kinds of other stuff. So.
I want to thank you for being in this particular moment with us, John. And you mind if I tell folks when they can catch you again?
Sure, of course.
John Dickerson is the co-host, along with Nora O'Donnell and Gayle King, who you see in our Open every time you watch One on One. Every morning from 7 to 9, CBS co-host of CBS This Morning. And I want to thank you, not just for being here, but for everything you've done as a journalist and broadcaster for the reputation of our industry. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Stay right
Thanks
there.
a lot.
Be right back right after this. Thank you.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
That was ESCAPE to Margaritaville. This is Christopher Ashley, the director of ESCAPE to Margaritaville, Tony Award-winning director. By the way, previews for ESCAPE to Margaritaville start when?
Tonight.
Tonight, by the way, we're taping, actually, full disclosure, February 16th. Tell everyone, I asked, what's it like today?
So we had our dress rehearsal last night. We'll be putting in changes all day today, and we have our first audience tonight, which I think will be a mix of hardcore Jimmy Buffett fans, they call them parrot heads, and theater goers who just want a good story.
Are you a parrot head?
I started out, but when I started working on the show about 4 years ago, as a real fan, but now I'm a full-fledged parrot head.
Because?
I think I know every word of every song he's ever written by now, just putting the show together. And also, I just started going to his concerts as prep for the show, and they are a wild, intense celebration, those concerts.
For those who don't know or are not fans of Jimmy Buffett, describe him and it.
So he is this great joyous guy who lives his life having fun every single day. And he's got this amazing body of work of hundreds of songs, which are celebratory and amazing party songs. If you think you don't know him, you probably actually do.
Such as?
Escape to Margaritaville, one of his most famous, Volcano, Cheeseburger in Paradise. There's a lot of amazing famous ones. We also mine a lot of the lesser known ones, and he's written a couple of new ones for this show.
Whose idea was this?
So Jimmy's been trying to put together a show wrapped around his music for a couple of years, but our two book writers, Greg Garcia and Mike O'Malley, came up with this brand new story and pitched it to Jimmy. And we've been developing it for about 4 years, and this is our first night in New York.
He's into Jimmy. You told me that Jimmy Buffett is engaged and involved.
Very much so. He's been on tour the entire time we've been developing it. But he flies himself in on his private plane from tour, and he's been our spirit guide. He's super smart about his own music, of course, and he's a really adventurous creator. So whenever the question is, should we try this? His answer is always, yeah, let's give it a try.
So, again, I appreciate his music, but don't know what that. I mean, I like it, but I'm not a parrot head.
Yeah.
We don't lie on public television. How do you wind up appealing to folks outside of those who are passionate aficionados?
Right.
If you
So
will,
for the fans, there's all kinds of Easter eggs through the whole show.
I mean, they
all
get
kinds
it.
of ways, and they really get it.
Will we not?
Our goal is to make a show that you can enjoy if you don't know a lick of his music,
Okay.
to really create a story that stands on its own. And his music, if you don't already know it, it has an incredible celebratory welcome to the party quality, and also a real strand of sadness and loss and a kind of poetic, philosophical bent about characters whose lives didn't turn out exactly the way they had hoped.
And this musical, there's a story here, and the lead, the protagonist, if you will, is
Tully Mars.
Tully Mars,
A songwriter, works in a beach bar, new woman every week, and really lives his life for love right now. And he falls in love with the most unlikely woman imaginable, an environmental scientist who's all about changing the world.
This is not at all Jimmy Buffett's story.
Her story, there were no songs pre-written for an environmental
Got it.
scientist who wants to change the world in Jimmy Buffett's catalog. So he's written some new ones, and his whole team of collaborators have really created a voice for her within his music.
What's the connection between this play and the La Jolla Playhouse?
So I'm the artistic director at La Jolla Playhouse. I've been there for
You admit that.
11 years. I write loud and proud. And it's an amazing storied theater. It was founded by Gregory Peck and Dorothy McGuire in the 40s. Des McAnuff ran it for many years. And it's recently been 100% new work, world premiere musicals and plays. And
Did it come from away, start there?
It did. Exactly right.
By the way, you won for that. But Georgette, who do we have on? Irene and David, the writers, we had them here. Come from what an incredible story. They're in and the people
The
come
story
there
of that
and
show. It's a tiny town in Newfoundland.
Look at these people. Who are they? And they take them in.
They took these people in from all around the world,
Right.
different languages, different cultures, and a story of incredible generosity. That show.
You knew that. Did you have a sense that was going to be special?
Our first performance in La Jolla, the audience lost their minds and wouldn't leave the theater. They just kept staying and clapping and talking and telling each other their stories of that week. So yeah, I had a sense pretty early that it was something special.
When Escape to Margaritaville first was performed there, reaction?
So there was a
Totally different place.
Totally different place. Mixed audience of parrot heads and our subscribers who are real theater goers who want a story.
At La Jolla.
At La Jolla. There was tailgating out in the parking lot, much to my surprise, for hours ahead of time, right?
Shocking.
Everybody brought their own shots. And it was interesting to watch those two audiences figure out how to watch the play together. The parrot heads were up for a party and up for a celebration, and our subscribers were trying to watch the show, and there was singing along, and they sort of figured it out within about 5 minutes, and they were all the way in it and all the way intent, and it was a party in the way that you hope for if you direct theater.
A cliche question. Who is this play for? age-wise? Anything that
Yeah, it's
a 15-year-old?
Absolutely, a 15-year-old can enjoy it. Absolutely,
I'm asking because we have a 15-year-old.
Do you?
Yeah.
You absolutely, you're invited.
Okay. Down to 13, we're okay? Or are we pushing it?
No, I think we're okay at 13.
Okay.
It's not for little kids, but the generation that grew up with this music and had their first date with this as the soundtrack will absolutely enjoy it. And I think teenagers and 20-somethings. There's a great love story. It dances like crazy. I mean, this music makes you want to move. And sort of like a Jimmy Buffett concert, there's real theatrical surprises all night long.
Before I let you out of here real quick, thing you love most about being a director is?
Oh,
we have the best director in the world in Bob Morris. That's why I'm saying.
I love that. What a great question. I love watching audiences come together and form a community around a story. That's the most exciting thing in the world to me.
I'm not going to ask you what you don't love about directing.
I appreciate that.
Let's leave it alone. Escape to Margaritaville at the Marquis Theater, 210 West 46th Street, right down the street from us. In preview, starts today, but folks, check it out. Christopher Ashley, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you and your team and the whole Jimmy Buffett Parrot Head family all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
We'll be right back right after this. That was fun.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're with one of the, he won't accept it, but he's one of the stars here tonight at the annual gala of the New Jersey Sharing Network, celebrating 30 years of this organization. He's Dr. Stuart Geffner, Director, Transplant Surgery, RWJBarnabas Health. What does tonight mean to you? It's a big celebration, right, Stuart?
Absolutely. It's very special. It's a fantastic organization. I'm just happy that I could have been a part of this for over 20 years now, really trying to save lives and improve lives. It's been tremendously meaningful for me and in my career.
One of the reasons I mentioned or referred to Dr. Geffner as one of the stars is he's been involved in an initiative that comes right out of this location. We're at the Liberty Science Center in Jersey City, New Jersey. It's an extraordinary initiative simply called Live From Surgery, going into its 14th year. Tell folks what it is, Doctor.
So this is really a special program. During the school year, about 15 or 16 times a year, a group of high school students, usually honor science students, will come to the Science Center in a special theater in the Science Center, and they will view in live real time a living donor kidney transplant. And over the course of 2 hours, they see us remove the kidney from the living donor with laparoscopic or minimally invasive surgery. They see us prepare the kidney on what we call the back table, and then they see us implant the kidney into the recipient. It's an absolutely spectacular program. For the Science Center, for the Sharing Network, for my program, we all partner in this together. What makes it so special is that it is completely live and completely interactive.
Whatever happens, happens.
The kids see what I see. We have cameras in the operating room. They're looking at the same laparoscopic feed that I'm looking at. They have microphones where they can ask questions. I hear them. I have a microphone.
No, Stuart, hold on. During the surgery?
Yes, absolutely, during the surgery. So it's a great program. And really what's been special for me about it is it really has given us the opportunity to educate literally thousands of kids, and we've done this internationally as well, about the need for organ and tissue donation in this country, about the miracle of transplantation, about important take-home messages about healthy lifestyle to prevent high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease and kidney disease, and about hopefully potentially influencing the next generation of physicians, scientists, and people that will be my colleagues in the medical field one day.
You know, it's interesting, as we listen to Dr. Geffner, I often say as a broadcaster that I have a responsibility to fully disclose, and our family has had a connection with Dr. Geffner. My wife, Jennifer, it's interesting, I learned more about the Sharing Network really through my wife, Jennifer, who chose to donate her kidney to her brother. Family members out there, you know, there are live donors, and then there are those who sign up, those who say, if I pass, I want to give the gift of life. To those who are out there who are family members, who are in a position to help, what would you say to them?
It's really the greatest gift that you can give, and it is something that we can certainly help you with, and we'll guide you through that process.
Talk about what that means, help you guide you through that process.
So obviously, if someone is in need of a kidney transplant and they have someone in their family who is a willing donor, they are evaluated at our center. We see if they are compatible from an immunologic standpoint, from a blood type standpoint. We obviously make sure that they're medically suitable to donate a kidney, to undergo surgery, to donate a kidney. And then obviously we perform that donor removal of the kidney in a minimally invasive fashion. I never minimize any type of surgery, but we obviously do what's called minimally invasive surgery, where a patient will have a series of very small incisions, about 1 centimeter, and one incision about 4 centimeters to remove the kidney. The recovery time is usually pretty quick, usually hospital stay for 24 to 48 hours, and within about a week or two, that healthy donor is back to their regular lifestyle.
Yeah, to Stuart's point, I will say that I can't keep up with my wife Jennifer in terms of her workout routine. She is running outside on the treadmill. And by the way, Stuart's a runner as well. So I listen, it's not the same for everyone. If you're not an athlete before, you're not going to be an athlete after you donate your kidney. But finally, what would you say to your colleagues at the Sharing Network as they celebrate this 30th anniversary, Doctor?
Thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do that helps our patients that are in need of life-saving, not just kidney, but across the state of New Jersey, heart, lung, liver, pancreas transplantation, all the work that the people at the Sharing Network do to help those patients. And it's really been my honor and privilege to be a part of this organization for the past 23 years now. I hope to continue for a long time.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Steve, as always.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Georgian Court University, New Jersey Sharing Network, New Jersey Resources, TD Bank, the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor, Verizon, and by United Airlines. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Think this is absurd? Insurance fraud costs every New Jersey family over $1,300 every year. Report fraud at njinsurancefraud.org.